All right, we have some big news from Microsoft. Satya Nadella was recently tweeting about some big upgrades and improvements to Copilot. Personally, I'm pretty excited about this. Copilot is one of those tools that obviously it's got a lot of great AI tools, but I felt like it really was falling short for a long time on the agent side of things. We had tools like Claude, Opus, Copilot that I was using to get a ton of work done, and it feels like Microsoft felt the heat there. I'll read a tweet from Satya, and then I want to get Connor's take because you've been posting about this on LinkedIn, and I've seen your posts are absolutely blowing up. This is what Satya said, though. He said, "We're making a big change to the Copilot experience. Agent mode is generally available and now the default across Copilot in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. As models become more capable, we're bringing that power to where real work happens, right in the canvas. The power of a spreadsheet, as an example, is its spatial representation of information, what sits next to what feeds what. Give an agent that canvas to reason over, and a single prompt can reshape the model and bridge the narrative at once." Okay, Connor, what are your thoughts on this? You've been doing a lot with Microsoft. I'm super curious.
I think that I probably speak for a lot of people out there when I say, like, I'm rooting for Microsoft big time. And why? Because Microsoft is, I think along with Google and Salesforce and some of the other big SAP places like that, they're like the adults in the room, right? I mean, like, Anthropic is amazing, OpenAI is amazing. Obviously, there's incredible AI labs out there. But Microsoft, we have known and trusted for 30 years now. I mean, it's probably going on 40 at this point. And again, same with Google for a shorter span. But like if you use Google Work Suite or their suite or Microsoft, whatever, you just want those to succeed. And so what we hear from companies all the time when we go, so AI mindset goes into the big companies, we train big companies, and I cannot tell you, almost inevitably they use Copilot. Now they might also use something else, or they might use their own custom model for some of the Fortune 100s that we work with. But this is it, right? They use Copilot. They want to know how to use Copilot. And when you look at Copilot, Copilot's had a rough run. Jaeden, it kind of reminds me of Google back in 2023, right? With like Bard and everything. They were just sort of like
Yeah.
trying to get their feet under them. And you're like, Google, come on, we need you, right? Microsoft, I feel like, has taken longer. I really do. And it's hard to watch because they have 450 million users. They have some of the best products out there and only 15 million users for Copilot, which is why, we partner with Microsoft Research and Gap to do that whole thing where Microsoft Research showed that like the AI mindset way of doing things is actually can double the quality of work. Anyway, the point on this is that we need Microsoft to succeed, I believe. So when they started to announce this stuff just in the past like week or so about agent mode generally available and now it's going to be the default across Copilot and Word, Agent, PowerPoint. I'm like, all right, let me try it again. Good news. I went in there and I'm like, okay, this is different. Because for so long, what was I doing? Other people doing like, I'm just using like Claude in Excel. I'm using Gemini in Sheets, things like that. And I'm kind of like waiting for Microsoft to. Now it just hits differently. My kind of benchmark experiments, which is like, for example, in PowerPoint, I
Yeah.
take a random high school, not even the high school that we're associated with, but another one here in Connecticut where I live, and I just put it up. I'm like, make a deck out of this thing, right? And Copilot for a long time was just, it felt like, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, like just like white bullet points. I'm like, come on. Whereas like Notebook LM was crushing it, even Claude was doing well. It's different now. It's like, hey, who's this audience for? Is it more like this, or do you want this? You want to be hyped like this? Do you want to hype more the sports? And then it creates something. I'm like, holy cow! Does it take a while? Yeah, but the good ones take a while. It is now creating incredible PowerPoint, and you need a native Microsoft thing to be working in PowerPoint. I mean, you don't need it, but this is what you want, right? Because everybody in enterprise lives inside Microsoft. They don't have a choice. They have to use Copilot. So I tested in that. Excel was also great. Excel like made these incredible brochures, things like that, which I was testing it because I already know it can do incredible, sheets and things like that. And even Word was starting to like create things that really felt like, what were those things? I think they were called Pages in Perplexity.
Yeah.
Remember, like they just looked great. Like now, Word is doing that just off a prompt. If you're just like a free, free agent and you can work in anything all the time, well, good for you. That's me. That's Jaeden. We can use whatever tools we want. But a lot of people out there have to use Microsoft or they have to
Yeah.
use Google, and it is such amazing news to see this and to be testing it myself and to see like, holy cow, Copilot is back.
I'm thrilled that it feels like they're making a big push in that direction. I think a lot of people that, like you mentioned, a lot of times when you work at a company, you're either, I mean, I don't want to say like stuck, but like you're using Microsoft or you're using Google Workspace or you're using Apple products. Like actually, I don't know if any enterprises actually are forcing their people to just use like whatever the Apple version of PowerPoint is. That would be
No,
brutal.
no, that's brutal.
Sorry, Apple. That's a great segue. Is we do have Tim Cook being replaced by a new CEO over at Apple, and with that, I think we will also probably start expecting to see a lot of shifts in Apple in the AI direction. That is great. So, anyways, if I'm being 100% honest, I don't want to be a wet towel on this. I love your positive spin on this, Connor. I will say the comments over on X, which are typically kind
Mhm.
of negative for this kind of stuff,
Yep.
haven't been super positive.
No.
Someone said, yes, we're making progress. They have a picture of a turtle. So, people are knocking it.
Yep.
But here's one great comment that I did want to highlight because I do think it's important. Someone said, Anthropic is available in Copilot. It cooks in this new agent mode in Excel. Don't knock it if you haven't tried it. One thing that I will give Microsoft a lot of credit for is the ability to use AI agent tools inside of the product. So I
Yes.
know people are kind of like roasting Copilot, and I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. Is it as good as using a frontier model like Anthropic? Probably
No,
not, right?
it's
But I
not.
do give them credit for allowing us to work with those agents. You're going to find a lot of golden gems in the comments, and the one that I wanted to highlight specifically is Anthropic has just created connections with Word, PowerPoint, and
Yep.
Excel, and they are really, really good. Anthropic absolutely is crushing it. So if you have to work with them, whether you're using Copilot or whether you're using Anthropic, which is probably would be my choice in this case, if you have the choice, regardless of whatever you're using, these legacy tools we've had forever, these legacy platforms are getting completely revamped by AI models. And I 100% recommend using that
Yeah.
as kind of your default when you're using these. And
Yep.
it's a really interesting shift I'm seeing in software. We're going beyond, I think we're going to move very quickly away from having to know, like in Excel, learn every single formula, learn how to make the pivot table, learn how to do all the things. Instead, what we're going to move towards is just having a chat bar on the side of a lot of software. We're going to tell it what the outcome and the output that we want, and it will manipulate everything on the screen. You're going to want to go check and make sure that all of the formulas are correct and everything's being linked correctly in the same way you'd go review software. So you're going to need to be an expert in the subject matter that you're working on to be able to review everything correctly. But it's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And if you're trying to do that manually, you're going to be miles and miles behind because these AI models are incredibly good at getting your first start, getting you kicked off on this.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And by the way, I agree. The one of the things that I was super excited about, and I think we probably mentioned on a previous podcast, I got a sneak peek before Microsoft rolled out one of their bigger partnerships with Anthropic, and where they are allowed to use Copilot. Like, there's now like a Copilot run by Anthropic. I'm sorry, not
Okay.
Copilot. Cowork feature inside Microsoft, inside Copilot. And if you've used, Anthropic Claude Cowork, like, it's pretty extraordinary, right? I mean, like, so what my guy, Robert Haslam, who's our creative strategist, what he does on Google AI Studio and Claude Cowork is absolutely extraordinary. You should see like what we're doing. I'll be able to share it at some point soon. But the fact that Microsoft let go of the OpenAI partnership and said, hey, listen, we're going to partner with Anthropic, and didn't see them as an enemy. Look, you're always going to have some sworn enemies. You're going to have OpenAI and Anthropic are never going to collaborate. Microsoft and Google are never going to collaborate. You have to have some of those. As long as it's not sort of like, one behemoth against another. When I see Anthropic inside Copilot, it's absolutely amazing. But also, that's the thing. Like, you can use Claude inside these things. But that's the other thing, is that Microsoft, it makes me wonder where they're going. And it's actually, I actually don't really care, because what I'm seeing is Microsoft getting more and more valuable to me. Like, we're not a Microsoft shop, right? Like, we just
Yep.
we don't have that's really for bigger companies. AI Mindset is a smaller company. But we do use Copilot all the time, just because we're testing it, we're working with companies and things like that. And the fact that now what Microsoft seems to be doing is being like, you know what, let's go back to brass tacks here. We are the software that powers the planet, and they still are. We are the adult in the room when it comes to enterprise, even over Google, I think. So what does that mean? That means that no matter what we do not want to lose the confidence of those 450 million users. Like, not everything has to be AI. It just has to function. You don't have to own everything AI. This is why I'm wondering if Meta is starting to regret its choice now that they've spent 5 billion into, or 10 billion into this, probably more actually at this point, now that I think about it. But are they thinking like, well, why didn't we just like borrow somebody else's? This is where Apple is going to go, maybe, right? They're just thinking, well, intelligence is going to be a commodity. Maybe we don't have to build our own language model. I guess we'll find out very soon. Point being, The thing that I'm most excited about this is that Microsoft seems to be just saying, like, first of all, we have improved Copilot. Copilot is now working better in the core features, which is Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. But most importantly, if you don't want to use those, don't worry about it. Still stay with us in Word. Still keep those subscription dollars coming. If you want to use Cloud in there to make it better, you go right ahead.
And I think that they're taking a incredible playbook, which is very interesting from Apple, who, I mean, we kind of have roasted Apple for many years. And I actually would give Microsoft a lot of credit for trying and putting a lot of effort into this where it felt like Apple wasn't. But Apple is running a playbook where they own the operating system for
Yep.
phones and they're going to let you bring in whatever model you want to run the agent stuff inside. That seems the direction they're going here. Microsoft owns the operating system for a lot of businesses in a literal sense
Yep.
with Windows, but also with a lot of the software that you use to run your company. And it feels like they're running a similar playbook where they have this infrastructure that's very established. They're going to let you bring in whatever model you want to run it. And I think that is, if you can't, compete at the absolute highest level because that's not your focus because you have a massive sprawling business that touches so many different industries, this is a great way to integrate it and people are going to get all of the value. So love it. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. If you could do us a massive help, it would be to leave a rating and review on the show. We are getting so close to passing some new milestones for ratings and reviews. And if you could help us get there, it would mean the world to us. It helps the show out to get shown to more incredible people like yourself. And it's something that we're always excited to read. We read them all. We appreciate them. All right, we'll catch you guys all in the next episode.